With all the events taking place in the news each and every day, there's never been more of a concern as there is now about the economy crashing or about martial law. If any event happened, which would be beyond our control, ask yourself, do you have enough food supplies to last you and your family? Unfortunately, for most Americans, the answer is no. Please go to foodforliberty.com/Leahz, Leahz, and check out their food supplies. They have some of the best prices and reasonable prices on the market. Check them out today and order yours while there's still time. Again, that's foodforliberty.com/Leahz, Leahz. Waste no more time and get yours today. It's Lynn Leahz, and I've got Bob Kudla with TradeGenius.co on the line. And he has some hot information about earthquakes, some economy type information. And we were just talking about it. And I'm telling you what, it's going to blow your mind. Bob, go ahead and share with the listeners what you were telling me. And you didn't even give me all the details. So I'm just as excited to hear it as the listeners probably are right now.
Yeah, Lynn, good day, everybody. And yeah, actually, there's 3 earthquakes I want to talk to you about today. One of them's a financial earthquake that's going to probably rock the world like Lehman Brothers did in 2008. And then 2 more geological that will have tremendous impact on the economies of the United States and the economies of Europe. So I don't know which one you want me to talk about first, but I'll start with, and you can change my direction if you want, but I'll talk about the geological ones first, and I'll get to the financial one last. There's 3 times in the last 100 years, there's been what they call an earthquake swarm that hit in Southern California. And I don't know if I'm from Southern California, so I kind of pay attention to these things, but the southern part of the San Andreas Fault kind of disappears when it gets almost to Mexico. It falls into the Salton Sea and then it disappears, and then it comes from what they call a slip fault to a spreading fault where Baja California is. And if people know, if they look at a map, they can see there's Mexico itself and then there's Baja California, and it's a really long peninsula. Well, that became a peninsula because Mexico has been split in half. And that peninsula is slowly drifting to the west and a little bit to the north. And usually about every 150 years, the southern part of the San Andreas Fault unlocks and you have a fairly large earthquake. Well, we've been now 350 years. And what they've noticed is when you get these earthquake swarms in a certain part of Southern California, it raises the risk of an earthquake up exponentially. And the interesting thing about if the earthquake that happens that they're expecting to happen is that it's going to be very large. It would be as large as anything that would hit in California. And it's in an area where they call this, the fault is what's called smooth. And what that means is that the fault can rupture over a very large period of distance. And when that happens, they're talking about, it's like unzipping a zipper. And as that fault unzips and moves, it sends that energy, and the energy is going to go on the west side of the fault. It's going to head north, and it's going to point right to downtown LA. And on the east side of the fault, it points south, and it'll end up into the Gulf of California, which will bother nobody. And so what they're really worried about now, and for the first time in a long time, the USGS actually put an earthquake warning out for Southern California. Well, if this hits, there's some really interesting things that, based on the geography and the geology of Southern California, could be devastating. And, California is probably the 8th largest economy of the world. And in Southern California, we have a lot of port traffic comes in. It will separate and basically rip apart the transportation infrastructure in Southern California, which will then affect a lot of the rest of the country because of the Port of Los Angeles, the Port of Long Beach, San Diego. The major highways will be basically torn. We're talking 16, 18-foot displacement of the highways. And there's a pass called the Cajon Pass that leaves LA and heads up to the high desert and heads out into towards Las Vegas and towards points east. Well, that artery will definitely it would displace the highway completely, and there's 3 or 4 railroad tracks right through there too. It'll displace them as well, and basically it will shut the port of Los Angeles down for months. Well, it's not just that. The water aqueducts come through there for San Diego and for Los Angeles and for Orange County, and the grid goes through there too. So it would cut off the water, it would cut off the gas, it would cut off the transportation, it would cut off the ports. And that would, if that happens, it would just be an incredible economic, you know, calamity. And so that was one of the things I saw, and I'm like, and as you and I talk, Lynn, a lot about earthquakes and volcanoes and end times, and you start seeing these things pop up. I just said, okay, I noted that I live here. It's interesting to me. Hopefully I won't be too affected by it. And then at the same time, there's a fault to the west of me. I live along the coast, so the San Andreas fault could rupture. It may affect me long term, but I'm probably okay from like a shaking standpoint because I live in South Orange County. But there's a fault to the west of me called the Newport Inglewood Fault. At the same time, we're getting these swarms now in the Salton Sea area. We're starting to get a bit of a swarm up by the LA airport. And that's the northern end of the Newport Inglewood Fault. The southern end of the fault runs right off the coast off of Pendleton, San Clemente, Orange County. And for those who are interested, that's the fault that ruptured back in the 1700s that knocked the mission down, the San Juan Capistrano mission. Well, I live, as the crow flies, I live 2 miles from that mission. And so that was about a 7.0 earthquake. And that's in the middle where probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 million people live. And they're both swarming at the same time. And so it's really interesting. So all of a sudden, the Southern California part of the Pacific Rim is waking up. And really interesting for people who are kind of nerdy about this stuff, and I am a little bit, is the whole Pacific Rim has been just white hot in terms of activity for the last 10 years. But California has been quiet. And that just can't be for long periods of time, because when things move, other things move with it.
Well, do you remember just a few months ago, there was this big article in all the major mainstream newspapers about San Andreas? It said the San Andreas is fully locked and loaded or something along those lines. Do you remember that?
Absolutely. And that's what prompted me to talk to you about this today, because you never know when these things happen. And all of a sudden, since you and I talked, I don't know, was that a month ago? It's all of a sudden both the major faults, there's a third major fault too, but that one's been quiet right now, that are all of a sudden just heating up. And, if we start rotating into a higher activity level, it'll affect the United States and the world more than just Southern California.
Well, David Wilkerson prophesied such an event back in the 70s. I can't remember, it was 74 or something like that. He prophesied something about 2 or 3 earthquakes going off at one time.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but I certainly could see it absolutely coming true. And people watch the movie The San Andreas. It's not going to happen that way, but because the faults actually slide, they don't separate. But it's still pretty devastating earthquake, nonetheless. And so I thought, wow, okay, Lynn will definitely be interested. I think her listeners would be interested in that as well, as something to watch. And these swarms don't happen too often. We've been getting swarms up northern, the Long Valley, but there's a volcano there. But they're not sure why these things are swarming. And one thing that people don't realize is that there is volcanic activity under Southern California. If you drive from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, it's the desert. And so you think, oh, it'd just be like sandy. Well, there's all these black mountains. Well, those are volcanic eruptions that are, old lava fields. And so this area here is what they have, what's called a thin crust. And so these swarms could be earthquakes, or they could also be the magma starting to come up as well, which cause earthquakes and cause volcanic activity. Up the Newport Inglewood area, there's, the La Brea tar pits are up there. And where the Salton Sea is, just to the east of there is all kinds of old lava fields. So we could be into something very interesting happening here that would be pretty devastating if those things, come to light. And I thought you'd be really interested, so people could start following along. I think Southern California is going to get very interesting here very, very soon. And then
Yeah, and David, like I said, David Wilkerson had prophesied all these earthquakes going off at the same time, and he prophesied major catastrophe, things that sounded like martial law and the collapse of the economy. And for those of you listening, Bob knows what he's talking about. Bob, why don't you briefly share with the listeners your expertise in things to do with the economy and the stock market with tradegenius.co real quick. That way they can know that you know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, well, thank you for that. But yeah, so my background, we discussed this before, is that I have a 20-year corporate executive history with financial services companies. I've been involved in many, many corporate merger acquisitions, startups, and things of that nature. So it's businesses and economy and financial analysis is something that I love and I have a lot of experience in. And the stock market is a passion of mine, and it's also a way in which I help my family and I help other people who are interested obtain a bit of financial freedom and independence by being able to learn how to trade. So we started Trade Genius up. We've been trading for a long time. We've had the service in different formats since 2011. Trade Genius is a format that we're presenting people now that has a number of different applications for people. The simplest is to get my videos. They're free at tradegenius.co. So I give a daily stock market update, kind of fill people in on what's going on in the in the stock world. And then we have some books out there, one of which is talking about with the climate change and I believe cooling, not warming, and how that's going to affect agriculture and the things that you need to do about those things. And we also offer 3 levels of trading service for people who have a very small account. We can help them build an account that's 500 to 1,000 to 5,000 in a year. It's absolutely possible. And once they get to that point, they can move to another level where we help them get their account from $5,000 up to $25,000 over a course of 3 to 5 years. And then once they get an account that size, we can help them obtain financial independence through a third service that we offer.
Yeah, and you've got people who have signed up, and you've got some of my subscribers, or a large amount of subscribers of mine, have signed up with you. And there's a couple of them that are making decent money off of your service at tradegenius.co. And everybody can go below this video on my YouTube channel. There will be a special link. Please, if you want to check them out, click on that link. And you can try out his service and see what you think. But a lot of people are making really good money by using his service, and it's easy.
Yeah, it is. We're highly transparent. We keep things very simple. There's a methodology that works, and we have chat rooms, and you can come on board, ask any question that you want to ask, and stocks that we follow, even stocks that we don't follow, we'll certainly give our opinion on. And our goal is to help people obtain a bit of financial independence. I just was lamenting the fact I got my 30% increase of Obamacare from last year to this year. And incomes don't go up 30%. And so how are we going to do that? The only way I know how to do it is that I have to even trade even more efficiently and more frenetically. And people have to have options outside of their job, because if you're just working for a living and you get that increase, what are you going to not pay to pay health care? Well, that's what Trade Genius can come and help you do. Hey, set aside a little bit of money. Let us help you earn a little bit more than what you would normally earn if you were just in a mutual fund or having your fund managed, accounts managed by a bland professional, because they're not really earning any money. The stock market hasn't gone up in 2 years. So all they're doing is churning fees, and you're not making any money. And we'll help you make money so you can pay for some of these things, so you can actually have a normal lifetime here and going through all this crazy stuff and chaos that we're going through today. So
yeah, and you've actually got a free book they can go download on your website, and you've got free videos you put out daily, right?
We do, and we have a monthly newsletter that we put out, and we're actually going to write another book here soon on trading a very specific stock that very easy for people to learn how to trade and make really good money at, and that'll be out in a couple weeks. And then we separated an account. We put $50,000 into a separate account so people can actually see it. We're going to just trade this one thing. And so people can see how much money you could truly make trading this one stock that we're going to offer. And, the last day of the month of October will be the first time we show the results. And people are going to see that you can truly make 50 to 100% a year on your money. And it's something I've been trading for years. And people said, hey, can you just trade this? Can you just show us how to do this? Can you just show us how it would work? And we said, sure. So we put 50K into an account, and we're going to trade just that for folks, and so that people can know that they can make that kind of money, and we can help people, and it'll be a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and that's tradegenius.co. And for those of you listening, make sure you click the link that'll be below this video on my YouTube channel. That way Bob knows that you heard about Trade Genius through me, and that helps me to be able to do what I do. So make sure that you tell him somehow that you heard about him from Lindley Oz. And the best way to do that is to click that link below this video. So Bob, back to what you were talking about the earthquakes and the economy. Here we are so close to this election. And what do you see happening? I just heard, before you mention that, I just got a link emailed to me, and I haven't had time to check it out yet. But it said, breaking news, tens of thousands of fraudulent Clinton votes found in Ohio warehouse. And this was in the Christian Times newspaper. Have you heard anything about that yet? Because that's about all I know.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Some guy has works for a city or a county or a water district, walked into a storage facility that they don't normally work in, and found all these ballot boxes sitting in the warehouse, and they already are filled out for the Democratic ticket, and there's tens of thousands of ballots in these ballot boxes. So that's being investigated. But even more so, they found in Virginia too, where they actually caught the guy who was doing it. The guy was signing up dead people to vote in Virginia, and the guy admitted it, and they fired him. And now FBI is investigating 2 states now for election fraud. Now, they're like cockroaches. If there's 2 of them, there's probably a million of them. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with these people. I mean, to be political is that these people only know how to cheat. So look what they did to Bernie Sanders. If I was a Democrat and I wasn't for Hillary, they stole my vote, because they know better than everybody else. Now they're trying to steal the votes against Trump. Whether you like him or not like him, he's not doing that to her. And so these people will stop at nothing to be elected. And, and they're not being elected to represent us. They're being elected to overlord over us. And
yeah, Bob. And it is just so ridiculous how these things happen. I remember the same scandalous type things going on back when Obama was elected for a second term. So we know there's definitely some cheating going on. However, this election year seems more important than any other with everything that has happened to this nation. This nation has just gone so downhill since Obama took office. And, there's just so many prophetic things happening. Like you're talking about the earthquakes and the economy, and so much more is happening. We've only got about 10 minutes left, but what do you foresee happening prophetically in the near future with all of these things, the election getting ready to happen, these earthquakes, the economy, and more?
Yeah, the thing that I really want to talk about is the next black swan that is coming upon us, and that's going to affect Europe first, but it'll roll back in, and it's almost like, Babylon falling kind of a thing. The central banks around the world have basically usurped all national boundaries. So these central banks have created so much debt out there. And what they do is it's a daisy chain where they're all supporting each other. Well, there's a really, really weak link this year, like was Lehman Brothers in 2008, and it's called Deutsche Bank. And people look at the stock chart of Deutsche Bank. Ever since 2009, it's been straight down. Well, it's at the point now where they're just about, ready to either get a rescue or go bankrupt or not be able to fulfill their depositors' demands for their money. And the thing about Germany that's different than the United States is a lot of Germans keep their money in banks. And because the Germans are more savers and they get more loans, we're more credit and brokerage, and we borrow more. Well, once the Germans start pulling their money out of the banks, last week the hedge funds started pulling it out. And the Germans, I don't know if you saw this, Lynn, is that they've cleaned the whole country out of safes. So people are starting to move their money out. And there's another bank called Commerzbank in Germany that's also getting hit with redemptions, they're called. Well, if they get a bank run on both of these banks, it's too big for the German government to cover. You're talking $665 billion of exposure. And so if this bank goes, it'll daisy chain across the whole world. And we had money or credit available in 2008 for them to rescue. Well, there's no rescue this time because Europe's already negative interest rates. Japan is a mess. China is a mess. Russia's not going to help. The Muslim nations that are part of OPEC are underwater. As you know, America's a mess. So this thing could really, really just drop the system down. So, if you look at it prophetically, and, those who do evil will see this as an opportunity to create a one world currency, to get rid of cash, to put the mark. You can see it now. I mean, I just had a Bible study this morning at our church, in our men's study, and we talked about being a Christian in the culture. And, before it was like, hey, you're a Christian, I'm not. Now it's open hostility. And that hostility is now you're actually a traitor to the country if you don't support the government. And I get to see this whole thing as this implodes. Anybody that challenges these people will be branded a treason, a traitor and treasonous. And you know what? Unless you're part of the system, you need to let us know that you support the system. I can easily see how this can roll into a market of beast, how it can roll into cashless society, how it can roll into a one world government. You see the beast could be the Muslim nations that are, iron and clay. I mean, there's just so many places this can go in. It's just amazing. And this fire could start with Deutsche Bank. And so I want you to keep an eye on that. And I would urge your listeners to get up to speed on what's going on over there. And, pull your money aside. The German government actually told the German people a month ago to have a month's worth of supplies in your home. Now, when does a government tell their people to do that? They know what's coming. And, and I think, they probably know their people. The German will be prepared so they can buy themselves time that they don't have people rioting in the streets. But in America, and we talked about this before, is, if the SNAP check doesn't come through on Friday, on Saturday, people are rioting in the streets. People don't have that here. And I just think it's going to cause absolute chaos. And, they've been trying so hard to make everything seem so nice. And this one's out of their control because they only have two choices here, either rescue or let it fail. If they let it fail, we just talked about it. If they rescue it, it will drive the currencies crazy. And then you're going to start seeing hyperinflation. You're going to see currencies collapsing. And you'll see the dollar actually rise in value. And people are like, well, that's a good thing. Well, it's not really a good thing because it'll cause incredible deflation and it'll collapse asset values here in the United States that are supported by debt, which then the debt will be more than the asset values, which will cause 2008 all over again. So the choices are poor either way. And they've been trying to just to lift this thing along, limp for years, and they can't fix it. And it's going to get to an endpoint, and that endpoint's now. It's being pushed now. So prophetically, I could see why that would fit into prophecy. If you set that aside economically, I think 2017 is going to be a rough year.
Yeah, I agree with you about 2017 because a lot of things are already happening and being prophesied about next year. And just the way things have moved along over the last few years. I was doing an interview the other day. Well, I've had a couple different interviews this past week, but I think it was with L.A. Marzulli. And he and I were talking about how, like the woman in labor and about how every year since 2011, more and more keeps happening. Like it's building up and building up to where that baby is getting ready to be born, I think. But for the listeners out there, again, you can visit Bob at tradegenius.co, and please click the link that is below my video and check him out and sign up and start making yourself some extra cash. He always has very insightful things to say about prophecy. He's a huge fan of Bible prophecy and studies Bible prophecy, and has a lot of expertise in the areas of the economy and the stock market and so forth, being that he does have a trading company, right, Bob?
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah. So anyhow, we're about out of time, but we decided we're going to start doing 2 30-minute shows as opposed to one 1-hour show, because a lot of people just don't have a whole hour to just sit down and listen to a video because our schedules are so busy. So we're going to be in touch in a few days, and we're going to be uploading another show sometime within the week. So be sure and look for that. But in the meantime, go to his website and check him out, tradegenius.co. If you happen to use that link, somehow mention to him if you sign up that you heard about him from Lindley Oz, so that he knows. Bob, do you have any final thoughts in the last few minutes we have left?
I think it covered everything pretty well that we want to discuss today. The only thing is that I would say is that things are definitely going to get a lot more exciting, and I don't mean that in a fun way. I think a lot of things, as Lynn said about the woman in labor, I think a lot of things are going to come at us very fast. The election, the financial turmoil, what's going on with OPEC in terms of trying to save their countries by trying to raise oil, the hostility to the Christians, the hostility between the Muslim world and the non-Muslim world, all these things, Syria and Russia and the United States. That's a whole other show we probably can do, Lynn. Is that Ezekiel 38 is just sitting there on the on deck circle in terms of the players that are sitting in that region right now that are in warfare. And so I just think for folks out there is pray, be close to your family, have a plan, make sure that you guys are supporting each other, because the governments around the world are gonna be fending for themselves. They're gonna leave you out in the cold, and I just want people to start being mindful of what they need to do to survive and thrive, and also then to support those who don't believe as we do, that are going to have a lot of questions, and we're going to be there to support them and tell them what we believe and why we believe and why we're so calm, and why we know we're looking towards the Lord and not just for what's happening in this world today. So I always appreciate you letting me talk, Lynn, and look forward to our next conversation.
Amen. And thank you. I love having you on and love talking with you too, because you know how I love Bible prophecy. So thanks again, Bob. And until next time, God bless everybody. And go check out Bob, tradegenius.co. Tell him you heard about him from Lindley Oz. And everybody have a great week. Keep your eyes open. Get your hearts fixed on Jesus Christ, because he's coming soon. Thanks a lot. God bless you.